Hey everybody, welcome back to the Automatic CSS and Frames channel. We've built what we think is the best accordion component available in any page builder or system. And we want to show you that accordion in this video. It's going to be a complete walkthrough. We're going to build a sample FAQ section where the accordion is going to have our questions and our answers. We're going to show you every single setting that is available to you when using the accordion so that you're comfortable using it and comfortable customizing it so that you can build the exact accordion that you want. And we're going to show you how to style it. We're going to show you how to use it with a query loop. We're going to show you some of the unique features that are baked into this accordion element. Again, we are building components that are powerful, that are accessible, that are easy for you to use. And we think we've achieved that with the accordion. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, to get started with the Frames accordion element, what you're going to want to do is head over to the Automatic CSS dashboard, click on the Frames tab, scroll down to Components, and make sure you turn on the accordion component. All of our components are turned off by default because we don't want to load a bunch of component code for components that you aren't actually using. So the minute you want to use one on a website, you need to come over and turn it on, hit Save Changes, and then it will be available to you inside of the builder. Now, accordions can be used for lots of different things. For this one particular example, we're going to show how to use the accordion for FAQ. So I've got a little FAQ section set up and ready to go in a 2-column grid. And we have a right side of this grid that is just waiting for us to add the accordion element. So I'm going to click on the plus sign up here. I'm going to type in accordion or start to type it in. And you're going to notice there are 3 accordion elements. 2 of them are native from Bricks. These are provided by Bricks Builder. You don't want to use those. You want to use the Frames accordion element. I'm going to go ahead and click that, and it's going to load it into that area of the grid. I'm going to refresh and just take a look at what we have on the front end. We have a working accordion. It's got a header component and a body component. And when one is open, the others close. This is how an accordion works. Now I'm going to go back in. We're going to talk about all of the settings that go with these accordions so that you know what every single setting does and how it manipulates the accordion. And then we're also going to talk about how to use the accordion with a query loop, because this is a query loop compatible component. And there are many, many, many times where you should be querying the data inside of the accordion component and not putting that content in statically or manually. Before we do all of the settings, I want to make one note about the styling. We put some default styling in here just so that you can see the component working and see the structure of it, right? It's a clear separation of what's the header, what's the body. This comes from a separate style sheet that is loaded very early on, so it's easy to override. You can override it with the Bricks panels, obviously. You can override it with a child theme CSS, with Codebox CSS. Whatever you want to do, it's very easy to override, and it doesn't get in your way. There's no styling here that will prevent you from achieving the accordion that you want to achieve. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, I want a couple more elements inside of the accordion, and that's a good thing to talk about first. By default, I have 2 items. If I want 4 items, I simply grab one of the items and I can hit duplicate a couple times, and then it's going to duplicate it. And now you can see that I have 4 child items inside of the accordion. And just so that we don't get confused, I will rename these so that now we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. We refresh on the front end, and we can see now that I have 4 accordions. The next thing that I want to do is I want to put a gap or spacing between the items in my accordion. In some other accordions, this is quite difficult. In the Frames accordion, all you have to do is use the gap between items field. So I'm going to put in our content gap, hit enter, save, refresh on the front end, and now you see I have a gap between my accordion elements. That's fantastic. Okay, now we're ready to rock and roll. Let's talk about all of the settings that are available to you. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to collapse the entire Frames accordion element, and we're just going to talk about the parent container, because that is where you're going to find most of the settings. You can actually style all of the items from this panel here, both the header and the body areas. So this is very, very, very versatile. First setting we're going to talk about is toggle all in builder. And this is turned on by default. It basically allows you to see the content that is in each item of the accordion inside the builder by default. This is only a builder control. It is not a front end control. Notice on the front end, when I load the page, all of the accordions are closed by default. But in the builder, they're all open by default. This is just a user experience thing for developers because it's easy to manage your accordions when you can just see all of the content and you don't have to actually interact with the accordion to edit it and build it and things like that. All right, I'm going to open the settings panel. Default behavior. We have some options available to us. First item opened. I'm going to go ahead and toggle that on. It pretty much does exactly what you would think it would do. When I load the page, the very first item in the accordion will be open by default. This can provide a better user experience because somebody arrives on the page, they can see the content in accordion 1 without having to interact with the accordion. And it kind of lets them know, hey, there's content inside of these things. So you may want to interact with the others to see the content that is available to you there. So it encourages the user to interact with the accordion a little bit. But again, that's an optional feature. You don't have to have that on. It's there if you want to turn it on. Next thing is all items expanded. This more or less does what toggle all in builder does, except it does it for the front end of the website. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And with that setting on, every single accordion element is open. Now, if you start interacting with the accordion, it's going to go back to behaving as an accordion is because it's an accordion element. If you don't want it to act like an accordion, don't use an accordion element. But if you want, for whatever reason, all of them to be open when the person arrives on the page, then that is a setting you can toggle on. We also have a very unique setting called expand specific items. I'm going to go ahead and toggle that on, and you're going to see it gives you a little description of how this works. It says add class FR accordion item expanded, and I can copy that and put it up here as a class in just a minute. I think I've actually already used it on this site, so it's already going to be available to me. It says add that class to items you want to expand by default. Okay, so let's refresh and see that none of them are expanded by default, even though I've toggled this on. Why? Because I still need to tell the accordion which items or item or items, it's up to you, one or more, should be expanded by default. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select item number 3. So I've got all of my items collapsed here. I'm going to select item number 3, and I'm going to put that class on element number 3 or item number 3. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And then I'm going to refresh the page. And you're going to see that when I refresh the page, accordion 3 is open by default. You can do that for any accordion. Again, one accordion element, multiple accordion elements. You can decide what's going to be open by default. Now, very important. I'm going to go back here. Both of those things have to be true. I'm going to leave the class on that accordion 3, but I'm going to turn off expand specific items and hit save. And even though accordion 3 still has that class, that toggle is no longer activated. Therefore, accordion 3 will not be expanded. So it has to have the class and that toggle has to be on. If those two things are true, then you're going to get the functionality that you would expect. The next thing is another kind of unique feature here, which is scroll to hash. And I'm going to show you how to work this out. In order to do this, we need to add some additional sections to our page, like just a lot of dummy content, more or less. I'm going to pull this one up here and because I want our accordion section to be in the middle of the page so that we can see scrolling happening and things like that. So I'm going to refresh this page. And you can see that it is now in the middle of the page, okay? Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go to another page. This is a completely different page, and I have a button on this separate page. This will also work on the same page, by the way, but I wanna show the additional functionality of if you're on a completely separate page, what you're effectively able to do is link people to a specific accordion item. So it'll load that page where the accordion is. It'll take people down to the accordion item that you're linking to, and it will open the accordion item that you are linking people to. So this is really, really good for referencing specific items in an accordion, even from other pages. And from a user experience standpoint, it even opens the accordion for them that you're trying to target. So the way that we do this is I'm going to go back to my accordion. Let's go ahead and find it. I should probably name this. This is accordion section. That way I can see it in all of this garbage that's going on here. Okay, and then I'm gonna select my frames accordion. I have scroll to hash activated. That's really, really important. Then I'm gonna select item 3 again. I'm gonna take off that expanded class because that's not really what we're trying to do here. We're trying to scroll to hash. What I wanna do is give this item an ID. If you know anything about scroll to hash links in general, it requires the item to have an ID. One of the easiest ways to give an item a custom ID in Bricks is to go to Style, CSS, and then you're going to see down here on the left, CSS ID. And I'm going to say special item. Okay, so this is special item. You can name it whatever you want. I'm just saying, hey, this is a special item. We're going to link to it. Okay, so special item is the ID. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. I'm going to go over to our other page that we have open, and I'm going to go to our button, and I'm going to select the URL that this button is going to take people to. And if you know about hash links, this all makes perfect sense to you. If you don't know about hash links, this is how they work. So you want to find out what page the accordion is on. It's on accordion-2. So I'm going to say the URL is accordion-2. And then I want to append my ID to it. So I'm going to put a £, or a hashtag, as the kids say, and then special item, basically the ID of item number 3. And so that's what we're going to link to, and I'm going to hit save, and then I'm going to go view this on the front end. And when I click this button, the goal is it takes me to the page where the accordion is, it scrolls me down to where item 3 is, and it opens item 3 for me. It does all of those things automatically from this one link. So I'm going to click it, and it's going to scroll us down to accordion 3, and the content is open and it's available to access. The user doesn't have to do anything. This is really, really, really powerful. Okay, so I'm going to close that. We don't need that anymore. I'm going to close that page, and then I'm going to get rid of all of these sections. And we want to leave our accordion section in there. I'm going to get rid of all of these extra sections, and we're going to keep rocking and rolling with our tutorial. Okay. I'm going to go back to the parent frames accordion element, back into the settings panel, turn off scroll to hash. Again, 2 things have to be true. Scroll to hash has to be activated, and one of your elements needs an ID. And then you also need a link to that hash link. Okay, we also have close previous item. Now, I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. That's on by default, by the way. Now what you're going to notice is these work more like toggles. So they work independently. When one opens and I click on another one, the one previously stays open. So this is actually 2 components in one. You don't need a toggle component and an accordion component. You just need an accordion component that has the ability to behave as a toggle. So this is really 2 components in one, and that's the setting that decides which is which. Is this going to behave like an accordion, or are these going to behave like toggles? Close previous item gives you that choice in functionality. Very, very, very easy. Okay, expand duration is in milliseconds. That controls how fast or slow the accordion's open, how fast or slow this icon animates. Pretty self-explanatory. The gap between items, we've already covered. Additional settings. We want accessibility. We want HTML5 structure all to be taken care of and be flexible. So you really get to decide here. For me, this is a list of questions, of frequently asked questions, but it's an unordered list of questions semantically. So I want to reflect that in the DOM structure. I want an unordered list, and I want list items. So the question is, are we able to do that with the frames accordion component? And the answer is yes. So this tag right here controls the parent tag for all of your items. So we need to switch this to unordered list, or UL. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and we're going to refresh on the front end, and I'm going to inspect this, and we're going to see that I in fact have a UL, but you'll notice that there's a bunch of divs inside of it, which is not proper HTML structure. Because when we switch this to UL, what we're going to need to do is select our items, and then we're going to need to change the tag on those. So I can change this item to LI, I can change this item to LI, this item to LI, and this item to LI. LI, of course, stands for list item. I'm going to go ahead and hit save, refresh on the front end, and now you see we have perfect semantic HTML structure. We have no additional extra wrappers or divs or any other nonsense or shenanigans going on. Very, very, very clean output. Okay, I'm going to go back. We're going to click on our parent element and we're going to continue going. The next toggle, again, a unique value add to the frames accordion is the ability when you're creating FAQ accordion specifically, you can add FAQ schema to the page automatically with one click. So if I click here, you're going to see when I save and go to the front end and I inspect the page and I search for schema, you're going to see all of the schema for this accordion, for all of it's going to have all the questions, all of the answers, everything formatted properly for you, directly added to the page. You no longer have to worry about how do I get my FAQ schema onto the page? I used XYZ element, but it doesn't do schema for me. How do I actually get the schema onto the page? This is really important for SEO purposes, indexing purposes, all of this stuff, okay? And now with the frames accordion, it's literally one click. You click the button and the schema is done for you and you move on with your life. Okay, now let's talk about styling the accordion component. So I can control the header styling of all of my items from this one spot, and I can control the body styling of my elements from this one spot. And then we're going to talk about doing this with a query loop. Okay. So in the head styling, I have control over the padding. Notice the values here are faded out because that's letting you know, hey, those are the defaults, but they're not really set here, and it's very easy to override. So you simply choose what you want the new values to be. I can do space S here, and then I can extend that to all sides. I can change the background color here very easily. Let's go with something like, and I obviously have my right context menu available to me. Let's do like base ultra light on those. Let's do base light. Let's do colors, space, light. There we go. All of this is it's self-explanatory. If you've used bricks at all, these are all the same inputs that are available to you when you edit the styling of literally anything in bricks. What's important to know is this is the default styling for the inactive state. And then you can also change things for when the accordion is active. So let's say I just chose this info hover, and then I'm going to go save. I'm going to go to the front end. When the accordion is active, it's going to get that new color. So this is the ability to style active items separately from inactive items. I'm going to clear that out. You've got background color, you've got border, you can change the typography when the item is active. And then you can do stuff with the icon. By default, there is some space around. You can see the square if you kind of hover over it right there. That's actually making this accordion a little bit taller than it should be. You can just set the wrapper size to 0 and you're going to get a little bit smaller accordion. So just clear out your wrapper size there. You can control the size of the icon. You can even use, text L. If we look over there, text XL, it's getting bigger. Text XXL, it gets really big. You can do text S if you want to. I kind of like text M right there. So you can use variables in these inputs. Really, whatever you want to do to style these accordions, you are able to do. I can go back to my heading style typography and say that these are H3s, but I actually want them to look like H4s. So I can put our H4 variable in there, and now they're all going to be the size of your H4. You can see how combining, frames components with automatic CSS and these variables and tokens, it's just so easy to customize, so easy to manage the styling of various elements. All right, we're going to go down. Same thing here where you have a default icon style and you have an active icon style. And I just want to point out this transform box right here. If you notice on the front end, when I click on an element, this indicator arrow is going to flip upside down to indicate, hey, do you want to close this again? And then it'll flip around all the way. Some people prefer that this arrow points to the item text right here. So that's not 180 degrees, that's actually 90 degrees. And so, people have that question of how can I control how that icon is behaving as it animates? Well, we actually gave you an input for doing that. If you hover over the info icon right here, it says rotate 180 degrees. It's like an example, or translate Y. You can really do any transform statement here that you want to do. But if I do rotate and I do 90 degrees and I hit save, and I go refresh on the front end, now it's going to only rotate 90 degrees instead of the full 180 degrees. So we're giving you control over literally everything we can think to give you control of, but we're also doing it in a very manageable fashion. Okay, next is the body styling. You see it has some padding by default. So if I do space M, I can just replace these with variables, do whatever I want to do here. I can drop in a little bit of a background color. We can do maybe, let's do the base ultra light here. So we can do base ultra light. There we go. Let's save. Let's go to the front end. And now you see we have more of a boxed look to all of our accordion items. You can, again, adjust the border radius, add an actual border, adjust the typography. Remember, I'm doing this all from the parent element. I don't actually have to go interact with every item individually. We made it so that you can just click the parent, manage all of the settings from the parent, manage all of the items from the parent. It's very, very, very easy. The next thing we need to talk about is doing this with a query loop, because again, this is a query loop compatible component. In order to do this with a query loop, I only need one item in my accordion. So I delete all the items I don't need. I'm going to click on that actual item, and then I'm going to say use query loop. This works like any other container that you are turning into a query loop. I'm going to select query, post type is FAQs. The order is going to be ascending, and I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And now I'm going to refresh on the front end. I have 3 FAQs in the database for examples, and you can see that it queried 3 items. So we're off to a good start. All we have to do now is replace the actual text with dynamic data. So very easy to do. I'm just going to select. Now I'm actually I'm not doing this from the parent anymore. I'm actually inside of the accordion in the structure panel, and I'm editing the title. And I'm going to take out accordion 1, and I'm just going to say, hey, query the post title for that post. And then I'm going to go into the content area. I'm going to delete the content that's there, hit the lightning bolt, and I'm going to say, hey, I want to query the post content. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And we're going to refresh on the front end. And you see all of my questions are immediately pulled in. The accordion is working exactly as it was working before. The only difference is I'm now not managing this content statically and manually. I'm dynamically pulling this in from a custom post type called FAQs. And if you have clients who are adding or editing FAQs or removing FAQs or whatever, very, very easy for them to manage the FAQs on the website. But as a developer, it's also, you should be really doing this with things like FAQs. You should be querying them from a custom post type for scalability and maintainability purposes. And that's going to be it. That's going to be a wrap on the Frames accordion component. We feel like this is the most powerful accordion component that is currently available across any builder. And if there is of course, it's not going to stop here, obviously. And if there's any features missing, definitely give us feedback. If there's any questions about it, drop comments below. We are happy to jump in and help. As with all of our components, we are trying to build the best possible version of that component that is available anywhere. That is the value that you get as a user of Frames. I'll be back very, very soon with more component overviews, more Frames overviews, and more education in general. Cheers.